I find it a little bit disorienting because I always feel like, how come nobody asks this question to a male, to a dad who's a business owner?
When you had a job and when we had young kids, this was about 4 or 5 years back, 2-year-old daughter, our son was 2 months old at the time. And we both had really busy jobs and all that, right? And we were always struggling to get balance in life, like with kids, with work, careers, relationship, all that sort of stuff. Now, right after 5 or 6 years, we're both in the business full time. We have kids that are at an easier age to manage, but we still have a lot going on in the business, right? Like we're always like very, very busy with the business and investments and all that. Do you think you have that balance now?
This is such a good question. And you know, in a lot of different interviews, panels, like people like to ask women this question all the time, like, how do you achieve balance? And I find it a little bit disorienting because I always feel like, how come nobody asks this question to a male, to a dad who's a business owner? But over time, I've realized that this is actually hard to achieve and it's important to talk about it, right? Now, I do feel like there's a balance. When we both had full-time jobs and we had a toddler and a newborn, the balance was skewed in a very stressful way, right? Like we're spending majority of our time that we were awake at work, and then we had a little bit of time for the kids. And, you know, as somebody who had just given birth, also very little time for personal health and self-care and things like that, right? So I definitely felt like there was an imbalance. And then when we came into business, like when we started investing in real estate, I had made myself a promise that the kids are always going to be a part of it. And that is the one thing I would never compromise on. Not that the business isn't important, but I was going to work it around the kids. We were never afraid of working hard. It wasn't about that. It was about weaving a life where kids are a part of that life on a day-to-day basis.
When you started the business, I know like when you were looking at properties, you took the kids with you in the car seat, right? And our contractor, who's amazing, like who's like family, he used to, if you had to go in and look at the house where the work was going on, he would actually stay out with the kids. And, you know, while they were asleep in the car, he would stand outside the car. I also like what you said about, is balance something that you need to strive for? Like, one, can you ever achieve it? Two, is that something that's so good that you want to work so hard towards, right? Because in my mind, like you have certain priorities, of course, right? Of course, like kids are one of them, and you know, you work hard all your life for your career or business. If you're building a business, I just think balance is overrated, as you said, right? Like I'm the kind of person where I'm like, when I take on something, I obsess about it.
Mm-hmm.
If we were so keen on having balance in our lives, I don't think we would have grown our portfolio as quickly as we did.
That's a really good way of looking at it.
When you're seeking balance, then it's a moderation of everything, right? Like you can either look at balance and say, I'm going to do everything at 70% capacity so that I can be equally good at like these 5 things, right? But when you say, you know what, certain things, I'm going to give it my all. For me, it was, and I think for you as well, it was kids and the business, right? And creating a financial future for our kids and leaving a legacy and all that. That was very, very high on our priority list. So we went so hard at those 2 things that everything else kind of fell by the wayside, right? And I'm okay with that. And there was no balance in those. For example, you know, we do these things where we just hibernate for like a few months at a time. This is something that we didn't realize we were doing. And, you know, we just, like, we were talking about it like a couple of months back and you're like, wait, that's what this is. And it's worked well for us. And so it happened by force when the pandemic hit. And so we started focusing like on ourselves, like, okay, since we can't do anything else, we're just going to focus on our health. We're going to focus on the business. We're going to focus on the kids. I think that year and a half, we had the best growth in our business in terms of acquiring the most properties, doing the most amount of work, because we had discipline and we had less distractions.
And that is the exact opposite of balance, right? That is not balance.
Yeah, like good balance would be like, you know, I have a really good social life as well. And I play like 3 sports, like, you know, whatever, like balance can mean different things to different people, but that kind of forced us to only focus on a couple of things. And we're like, wait, this is quite amazing. And so in the last like 3 months, we replicated that. We said, okay, what if we hibernate like we were forced to during the pandemic and cut out all the noise? So going back to that balance thing is like, we don't have balance in a lot of other areas of our lives where we are kind of, you know, almost not doing them as much as we used to. but we're going all out on the 2 or 3 things that really matter to us. And it just gives you that clarity. Like, that's what's important to me, and that's what I'm going to focus on. And this may change like 5 years from now when our kids are a little bit older and our business at a point where we're like, you know what, we are going to focus less on the business and now we're going to go and do something else.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But at this point in time, figuring out what works for us has given us that clarity.
It doesn't have to be constant either. So for example, this summer, we decided we were going to spend 2 months in different countries. So we were in Spain, we were in India. We spent 2 months with our kids 24/7. We were together, we were traveling, we were working a little bit here and there, trying to realize that it doesn't have to feel balanced every week. It can be in chunks. Something we were talking about the other day with, people in our program, we had this come up and we were talking about, and we were saying that, whenever I'm relaxing, I have this invisible force telling me a better business owner would be finding a replacement for this XYZ employee. A better homeowner would be shopping for the next piece of furniture. A better mom would be making fresh meals for her kids. We have all these things always following us around. And I think that the day I felt free was when I was able to free myself from this guilt of meeting the demands of this invisible scrutiny that's been following me around.
How did you get over it?
So something to do with traveling. I think that when we started traveling for an extended period of time, removing myself from the day-to-day grind, the day-to-day expectations that life puts on us, I think separating myself from that, seeing that my kids were thriving, even when I wasn't doing all the things I thought I was supposed to be doing, seeing that the business was thriving, even though I was working very little on it, our relationship was thriving, even though we weren't doing all the things that we used to do when we were in our day-to-day grind, and so on and so forth. I think that really helped to know that it has nothing to do with how much we're doing on a daily basis. And then coming back from that and just making sure I hold on to that feeling that really it doesn't have anything to do with how much we're doing on a daily basis, how productive we are, how much we're accomplishing, how much we think we need to be doing, from checking things off from the to-do list. None of that has an impact on how our kids thrive, how our business thrives. In fact, our business did better in the 2 months that we didn't work on it. That really gave me that shift that I needed, that in theory, you know all these things, but sometimes you have to experience something for you to really digest that theory and be able to put it into action.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you ever have this conflicting feelings about balance? I've never heard men really struggle with it.
Yeah, I don't think men, if I can say that, I don't think men have the same kind of pressures that I agree with you when you say that a lot of women talk about that invisible workload, right? And definitely that. I've never felt it as a man. It's definitely different. There's different kinds of pressures.
There's different kinds of pressures, I'm sure.
But I don't think balance has been a challenge for me personally. I've had other issues, that I've had to deal with other challenges, like bringing discipline in my life and, having all these other things. But balance to me has not been an issue because I think I'm also always very focused on just prioritizing and eliminating stuff that I don't need to do. But I guess it's different as I said, I think it might be different because as a male, I don't face the same kind of pressures.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I feel like in working so closely with you and living with you as a woman and seeing how a man deals with the same situation in a very different way, it's been really interesting to observe and we've been really open about it too. And so I would ask him, why doesn't that bother you? And why would it bother me? And having these open conversations really help with growth both ways, right? It really helps understand both sides and grow and learn from each other. That's been pretty interesting. Question for you, food for thought, right? Do you struggle with balance? Have you overcome the struggle? And how do you bring quote unquote balance, whatever that means for you, in your life? Let us know. That's true. I actually forgot about that. Yeah, so I would
yeah, and it's
just not this one.
Yeah. And
somebody would come out and stand next to the car while I went and inspected.
Yeah.